You're listening to the Mile You're In podcast. Everything running related, from 100 meters to 100 miles. And now, here's your host, Phil Patterson Jr.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Mile You're In podcast. We're on episode 16, and I think that means we're going somewhere, that we're doing something with this. If not, that's the goal, that's the plan. So we're here. I'm working on being more consistent, as I've said multiple times in the past. So here I am recording another episode, and I got an interesting topic. A big thing a lot of runners fear is DNFs, did not finish. The last thing you really want attached to your name when people are looking at race results is a DNF. Even if it was a valid reason, no matter how humble you are, it still sucks to see a DNF next to your name. And it's even worse when you factor in, the money you spend on the race, possible travel, getting a room or Airbnb, for ultra runners, all the money you spend on your hydration and your food and things that you're going to bring with you during the race. So it's just, there's so much that could eat at you emotionally and mentally, even be used as motivation to not quit. I think the problem with it is us worrying about other people's opinions. So many times that I've quit during some of these 100-mile races, what kept me going up until that point was worrying about what people might say or what people might think. And that was, in a way, it was nice because it was being used as motivation to keep me going, because I knew deep down inside I didn't have to quit. It was more of I wanted to quit. So in situations like that, where I'm physically able to continue, I'm even mentally able to continue. It's just an emotional roller coaster, and at that point in time, you're trying to fight those demons in your head to keep going while they're telling you to quit. And sometimes that's the thing. Like I would wonder, how is this gonna look? Especially like what's even worse is like I would care about what strangers might say when they happen to scroll across race results. Someone who doesn't even know me and be like, because that happens. Honestly, like sometimes you look at race results and then you see like somebody's time or somebody's placing, and then you click on their profile like an ultra sign up and you start looking at everything that they've done, and you start like picking apart their whole race schedule and their results. I used to do it when I was doing 5Ks a lot. I'd look at other race results to see, who was doing what and what kind of competition they had. And really, I mean, it came down to what time did they run, because it didn't matter if they finished last, but they ran a sub 25K. It's like, damn, that means the competition was amazing. But, I know people that ran 23-minute 5Ks and won first place overall. And it's like, what? Like, I would have seemed like an elite athlete at that race, at the time. So it's like, we need to stop worrying about what other people are going to say or think, no matter how we do in these races, good or bad. I always think about one of the first things I was told when I even considered running 100 miles. My friend told me, he's like, dude, 100 miles is 100 miles. People are going to be more impressed about the distance and not really about the time. Obviously, the faster you do it, the more impressed they will be. But in the end, the fact that you even attempted it is just mind-blowing to them. And that's the thing. Like, the fact you're even attempting to do something that other people can't even fathom, can't even imagine, like, those are the things you should grasp onto and use as your motivation. Whether you complete the race, don't finish, you're doing things that people wish they could do, wish they could motivate themselves to do. So what you have to realize is the opinions, the comments, whatever you might get from dropping out of a race, it doesn't really matter other than how you feel about it, because only you know what you're going through. Only you know all the different factors that come into play that lead you to that decision. And in the end, you're really you yourself are going to forget about this after a while. Like I always thought that this was gonna beat me up for a long time, the day that it finally came. And after a couple days, the little moments that it would pop up in my mind and kind of eat at me, it was gone. Even that same day, like hours later, after I got a little bit of sleep and ate something, it was like, you know what? This was a valid reason to drop out. I didn't feel what I thought I always was going to feel. And nobody's reached out to me about it since. Nobody's mentioned it, talked about it. You know, it's just, it's gone. Like, people forgot about it. I forgot about it. No one really cares. I have these medals that I just put up, reorganizing this room. And I'm looking at medals that I forgot I even had. Especially like personal bests. Moments that at the time, like, I was like, I'm never going to forget this. I'm never going to forget this feeling. I used to get goosebumps talking about it. And now it's like, it was another race. It was another medal. You know what I mean? Like, we're living in the moment, because things of the past, that's what they are. They're in the past, and you either have gotten better, you've gotten worse, or you're kind of right at that stalemate point. If you're at peace with the decision, who cares? You know, and that's the thing that I think finally made me get my first DNF, is the fact that I was finally okay with it, because I knew this is probably what eats me up about it every time that I think about it, is that everything else about this race went perfect. My hydration was perfect. The food intake was perfect. Like, I never felt a low physically. Even when I was experiencing some of the soreness, it was progressing at such a slow rate compared to previous races, because my pacing was better. I'm well prepared for the heat. So as hot as it was, and I'll admit that, I mean, it was brutal out there, it didn't affect me. Like, to me, it was just another day, slightly hotter, but mentally, I never felt better than I did through that portion of the race that I was able to complete until like the last couple of miles. But I'll usually have those lows and those moments where I even start to think about quitting, but it never hit me until I finally actually made the decision. It's just, I mean, everything was going good. Time was flying by. Like, every time the mile would go off on my watch, I'd be like, man, that was a mile. And then I'd realize how long it's been. And I'm like, man, it's been that many hours. So it's just like, it sucks for the fact that everything went perfect except for one mistake that I made. And that's where, again, I was at peace with the decision. Like, you know what? You have 2 races coming up. Use this as a training run. You prepared for your next 2 races with this experience. If I can even have half of what I had at this previous race in one of my next 2 races, man, like, there's a potential for a personal best time, because I was crushing it out there despite all the hurdles and factors that we had to deal with. It was when I finally made the decision out there, I was like, you know what, I really don't care. And that's the thing, like, I had said that actually during my previous one before this, the long haul race, where I remember posting on my social media to you guys that I was at peace with the decision and I was done. I'm going to take a nap, and when I get up, I'm going to pack my stuff and go. But when I woke up, my mentality had changed and I physically felt different. Where this one, I knew there wasn't enough time to heal the physical issues I was dealing with, and it wasn't worth trying to push myself through that pain, only because I knew I had other opportunities coming up. Had this been the last race I'm going to do for a very, very long time, then maybe I would have pushed myself. But with that, it's me wanting to remind you, whether it's something athletically or just your career, school, a relationship, so many things in life that this can apply to. Don't be afraid of failure, especially if you are giving it your all. So if you're in a relationship and you're doing everything for that person and it's just not working out, there's so many times I was in relationships that I was afraid of ending and being single, and when it happened I was so heartbroken, and it was all I thought about, and it ruined my mood. And what happens? after a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, hopefully not this serious, but after a couple months, eventually you're going to get over it. No matter how bad the breakup is, if it doesn't work out, you're going to get over it. And you're going to find somebody else and you're going to move on. And that's life. There's so many times I've applied for jobs and some of them I got so close and I didn't get it. And I was depressed for a while. And what did I do? Went out and applied for another job. And here I am working at a company for a couple years now that I really love, really enjoy what I do and who I work with. And it's just, if I had been afraid of taking chances, I would have been stuck in previous jobs where, nothing against them. It's just, after a while, certain things just don't feel right to you, or you don't feel you're in the right place, and you have to make a change. And that's what it is you can become complacent and stay in that job because you're afraid of starting a new job or getting turned down by ones you really want, and you just stay where you're at. I know people that have done that for a majority of their life, and they're always miserable and they're always unhappy because they're afraid of what happens if I go there and it doesn't work out and I miss out, or at least on this opportunity that I have that's been consistent and secure. And it's like, look, you got to take the chance. If you're unhappy where you're at, you got to take the chance. You got to do it. Now, one of the things you got to keep in mind as well is sometimes you can follow the plan 100% and something unexpected happens. No matter how well you prepare and how many things you fix from previous mistakes at previous races and things like that, like there's always going to be something that happens that's out of your control. And for me, it was just a simple mistake of forgetting. I'm going to go there. Some people didn't. When I mentioned this on social media, some people were kind of grossed out about it. Look, we all chafe, okay? No matter how prepared you can get, it seems like the body finds a new place for you to chafe. Like I experience chafing in different spots on my body all the time. Like sometimes it's my nipples. Sometimes it's my ass. Sometimes it's the genitals. Sometimes it's my back. Chafing happens and it sucks, okay? Women, I know sometimes you deal with it around the boob area. It's just, you do your best to lube those areas and I, for whatever reason, now that's one area I always take care of. For some reason this race, I did everything but that area, and I didn't feel it until around the 50-mile mark. It started, like, I want to say around 45 to 50 miles in, I started feeling it. I put some stuff on there and it felt okay. I was like, okay, this is working. But at that point, it was already too late. Like, the lube was causing it to like burn and sting. Now at this, let me actually rewind 1 second. I'm not talking about my genital areas at this point, like the inner thigh, which is obviously caused by rubbing against that at times, but it was the inner thigh area that was chafing really bad. And it just with each step, it was getting worse. And like I looked at it and, kind of was like trying to make the decision of what to do. Do I put some tape on there that I know is going to hurt like hell when I was joking with my other friend afterwards. Like I would have just left the tape on until it just fell off. I could still be wearing it now if I had to, because anything I could have done to mask that pain and get through it, I was willing to do. But I don't know. I think at that point I was just okay with quitting. That I was like, you know what, this lube has already sucked and it's just killed the momentum. I don't really feel in the mood to do anything else. But the thing about it was I started walking, as I try to say it, like riding a horse, riding a bull. Like my legs were on that like bow-legged shape. So it felt funny walking, but like the friction was gone. There was no rubbing, everything was okay. But because of that, like I was looking at my time and it was just dropping. Like the pace was getting ridiculous. Then you throw in the factor that now it's around the time that I start falling asleep and getting tired, and that's slowing me down too. And I'm looking at the clock and I'm just like, yo, this ain't gonna work. Like Like I can physically push through this. I can keep walking like this. Maybe I'll tape it up if I have to when I get back to the base area where we start the next loop. A lot of different ideas were coming into play, but at the end of the day, honestly, I just, again, felt like there was no point of pushing myself to try to make that cutoff, because I started doing the math and I'm like, there's no way I'm going to make this. Because if I stay at this pace, which is the only pace and technique I can use to continue, I'm not going to make the cutoff. And there's no point of torturing myself like that mentally. It's not fun anymore. It's not worth it. Pack it up, take it as a lesson to remember to do certain things next time, and come back more prepared next time. And there was still some doubt in me, like, okay, you know what, let's just finish this loop and see what happens. Because again, I've quit so many times and been in that scenario that it's like, you know what, you're gonna get back to the base, take a break, and you'll be fine. But that loop involved a 3-mile section on the beach, and that had did it for me, because now I can't do that, technique of a walk, and there's no stability on that sand, especially at night, because you couldn't have lights because of the turtle nesting, mating season, whatever it is that's going on around that time. So you're just relying on the moon for light at that point, and you're trying to walk as close to the water as possible so that you have the hardest sand, but then you gotta fear the water coming up, which happened earlier in the race, and soaking your feet and your shoes and blisters. So you're trying to toe that line of hard compacted sand and soft unstable sand. And at that point, it was just, I stopped so many times just to air my legs out. Thankfully it was dark and nobody could see what I was doing, because I'm sure that would have been an awkward vision, which I'm actually probably putting in your heads right now. But I kept my clothes on, I promise. But I did joke that I was thinking, man, if only I could finish this race bottomless, in the nude, then there might have been a chance. I had everything else planned and prepared for, and was working, and then this happens. A simple mistake that I made. And it's happened many times before. I've talked about the keys where I forgot the drop bag at the 20-mile mark, and different mistakes that you make. It's just, that's the thing. If you kind of zero in on one thing, you're going to forget about other things. So you have to be open and aware to everything that could happen. And whether it's writing stuff down, any way you can remind yourself of a checklist. And that's something I'll remember is, as many times as I've done these things and gone out on training runs and things like that, it's a lesson that going forward, I need to have a checklist that I can physically look at and say, okay, yes, I did this. Because things that you've done so many times, you might forget to do that one time that it's the most important, and it's going to cause you to fail. It's worse when it's something that you should have done or shouldn't have done, when you know better, and it's like, damn, like, how could I do that? How could I not do that? Like, it's just, to you, it's common sense, but sometimes in the heat of the moment, in certain situations, you forget. So you have to look at, now, how do I respond? Something you have to keep in mind going forward is, it's how you respond to getting knocked down that shows what you're made of. I know people that have failed so many times. So think about what you're going to do to avoid getting knocked down again, and realize what that does to you. Because some people, they get knocked down and they just quit. That's it. They're done. They give up on themselves, or they give up on whatever it is, whatever goal. They put it in their mind that it's unattainable and an impossible feat to accomplish. And in reality, 99.9% of the time, it's not true. We can all be honest. There's certain things that we want to do or we hope to do that we know it's very rare. Like me, I wanted to be in the NBA. Yeah. That wasn't going to happen. I played a lot of basketball. I had a lot of people that would pick me in pickup games, like first or second. They knew I could shoot. They knew I had the energy, and I was up and down. I had a lot of great I wasn't going to the NBA. I wasn't even making it to college. I didn't try out for the high school team because I was like, I looked at the quality of guys there, and I'm like, there ain't no way I might make JV, but that's it. Like, you know what I mean? There's some things that you have to be honest, like, you aren't physically gifted at. Does that mean you shouldn't try? No, go try. Like, there are so many cool things that I've experienced doing things that I really know I had no chance at, but it was like, you know what? Who cares? Like, you're not going to get penalized for trying something. Like anybody in your circle, your friends, your family, if they really support you, they're going to be like, yo, do it, man. It's your life. You only get one life. You only get one opportunity to really enjoy it to its fullest. So if there's something in your mind that you think is like being an astronaut and going to the moon, or becoming president, or becoming a professional sport athlete, you know what I mean? Like, just do it. Like, what is it going to hurt you? I know people that have experienced more failure going for dreams, but have enjoyed life so much more than people that just sit back and wish, man, I wanted to do that. I wish I had the confidence to step up and try this. So stop fearing failure, what people might think, what people might say, because it's life. You know, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and LeBron James, they didn't hit every game-winning shot. Look at all the people that have run for president and never made it. You know, all the people that have dropped out of college because, you know, life happens, it got too hard, or they realized it wasn't for them. Like, yeah, you might regret certain things about it, but I guarantee you the experience that you had and the knowledge that you gained, everything that you can use to go forward in life, you're going to be like, you know what, it was worth it. And that's where you got to find the positive within the situation. I look at what happened at that race and I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to allow myself to beat myself up. And I'm not going to allow anybody else that might have said something to bring me down, because, again, as I said in the beginning, I was at peace with the decision, but I knew how I could bounce back from this. This wasn't something that was going to involve hours upon hours of research, and even if it did, if it's something that really meant a lot to me, like, you know, doing these races does, I would have put in the time to research, put in the effort to practice these different techniques, whatever it would entail. But that's the thing, is I look at that and say, you know what, there were so many things that went right that I'm not going to allow this one negative, my first time having to quit, I'm not going to let that destroy my future plans and my future goals. I'm going to use that and say, okay, here's everything that went right. Let's try to make sure we do that again. And next time, don't do what we did wrong. And we should be perfect. Like, everything, you know, and I know something else is going to go wrong, but that's where that checklist is going to help, because I know come a couple weeks when I go to do the Wildcat 100, especially because that one, I have so many friends out there that I get distracted. But if I don't make a checklist, I know I'm going to go out there and be so focused on lubing that one area, I'm going to forget other things, and I'm like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I'm never going to get this right. So that's the part of bouncing back and learning from your mistakes and being more prepared next time. Don't beat yourself up if you quit because you had to. You know what I mean? Like, I know people that drop out of school or have to leave their job because of having kids, or something happens in their marriage, or a death in the family. Like, there's so many factors that come into it, and you're like, you know what, I have to step back. I have to step down. I can't continue going like this. I can't keep pushing myself through. And even if that quitting is permanent, most of the time it's temporary. I think we all know somebody who's gone back to finish their degree, people that have returned to jobs that they used to work for. A lot of couples, even ones that got divorced, that have gotten back together and made it work a second time. So it's one of those things where you're in the moment and you have to know what's right for you, what's best for you, for your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, you know, in some cases, your financial health. Sometimes we get involved in things that we just no longer can afford. You know, and we're doing so well and it just sucks. Like, you just wish you could win the lottery, or someone just gives you money and you're like, you know what, I got to take a break. Until I can afford this, I can't continue. Don't beat yourself up if it's quitting because you had to. And that kind of ties into quitting if you want to, but I think a lot of times we just mentally, we get bored or we need a break and we quit instead of just taking a break. And I think that's something to keep in mind too, is like, you know, if we're struggling in something, maybe continuously failing at something, take a break. You know, that's what happened with me. Like, I kept applying for jobs and getting turned down, even though I knew I had most of the experience. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to take a break. And then I stumbled across another career path, another opportunity. And now I'm like, this is where I'm going. So sometimes, you know, things, as we say, happen for a reason. And there's a reason you failed. It was something that you were supposed to learn, maybe to humble you. There's so many things that we can learn from failure that if we're willing to risk failing, who knows what's possible? Who knows what's out there? But so many of us are afraid to fail that we miss out on opportunities, and we kind of just live these shelled in, boring, uneventful lives. If that's you, that's you. Hey, if you're happy, by all means, do you. But my encouragement is to not fear failure. You know, I started thinking of DNF, and I'm like, you know, we all know it as did not finish, but I wanted to twist it, you know, finding that positive in the situation. I wanted to call it did not fear, because I didn't fear going forward. I didn't fear the moment. I didn't fear anything about that. It was more of, hey, I was out there. I was still pushing through, even when I wanted to quit, even when I probably physically should have quit. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid of failure anymore. As much as we are our worst critics, we have to be our biggest motivators and encouragers. We can't allow ourselves to always be the one that beats ourselves up and discourages us from doing things. We have to balance that out with the one that says, hey, you're able to do this, you're capable of this, and we're gonna try it. I know there's that quote, do or do not, there is no try. I hate that. I just read a friend of mine's post on Facebook right before recording this. She got, I believe it was 128 miles in, 30,000 feet of elevation, but she experienced heat stroke, and the medics wouldn't even let her continue. You know, even if she had somehow convinced herself to try, there was no way they were gonna let her. That's the type of mentality that we need to have. Like, you have to be confident in yourself. Don't be afraid to fail. If worse comes to shove and you have to quit, just make sure you're okay with it, because your opinion is all that really matters. Try to find a positive within that situation. Figure out how you can do better next time, and enjoy life. Use the time you have wisely. Go out there, experience life, push yourself, see what you're capable of. After experiencing my first DNF and realizing that it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, I'm not afraid anymore to take those chances, because at the end of the day, nobody, including myself, will care after so many days, weeks, months, whatever. We're going to forget about it because the next opportunity comes up and we're chasing our goals and chasing our dreams, and that's what people are going to focus on. So reevaluate your goals, your dreams, things that you wanted to do, things that you're in the process of doing. Let's do it, man. Let's accomplish. I'm getting hyped. So until the next episode, I'm rooting for you. I'm cheering you on. Send me a message on social media. Let me know what's going on. I want to root you on. I want to follow you. I want to support you. That's what this whole thing with life should be about, is community. Just one big family, getting rid of all this hate and division. So let's get it.
Thanks for listening to the Mile You're In podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Check out previous episodes and more at heelstriker954.com.